and welcome to Legal Affairs. My name is Diamond Liddy, and I'm the public defender of the 19th Judicial Circuit. We have a tremendous show today. We're going to be talking about a topic that probably a lot of you, fortunately, aren't familiar with, but is an integral part of our criminal justice system and our court system here on the Treasure Coast. And with us, we have Allison Duffy. How are you, Allison?
I'm good. I'm doing well, thanks.
And her title actually is Program Manager for the St. Lucie County Drug Lab. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. We're going to get into what is the drug lab and what it does and things like that, numbers if you have them, and if you don't, it's okay. But let's talk for a moment about you. First of all, how long have you been the program manager for the drug lab?
I've been the manager there for a little over 13 years, almost from the start of the lab.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
I did not realize that.
Yeah.
Now, what is your background? Have you lived on the Treasure Coast all your life, or no?
Well, I'm originally from New York.
Okay.
In New York, I was a paralegal for years and years. Plaintiff's personal injury. That's what we did. And so I moved down here with my husband and my sons, and I got hired by Judge Cox. She interviewed me and hired me to be a case manager in family, and then I became.
Well, then let's back up. And again, I know. We know, and we speak the language, but what is a case Judge Cox is a circuit court judge in our circuit, correct,
Yes,
Alice?
and at that time she was the family administrative judge as well.
Okay. And what is a case manager?
The case managers work behind the scenes, sort of like paralegal work, but for judges. So, you know, when you work for a law firm, you have a client.
Right.
And you have a client too. But within the court system, when you work directly for a judge, both people in the party are your client. You're trying to prepare, make sure all their paperwork is there for them so that they could be heard by the judge.
Okay.
For their final case. So you're not advocating for one person, you're advocating for both of them.
Okay, is this in divorces or child custody?
Both. There's
Okay.
divorces, post-judgment, paternity cases, name changes falls under family.
Okay.
So.
And as a case manager, you would kind of organize all the paperwork, et cetera, for the judge that's going to hear the case?
Right. We would just make sure all the required paperwork was there, set their dockets, send out hearing notices, things like that.
Okay. And again, this is in family. Now, are all your job presently, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, but previously, that's all under the umbrella of what, court administration?
Court admin, yes.
Okay. And is court administration it doesn't cover the other three counties, does it, or does it?
Court administration covers the whole circuit.
Right, okay. Now, your boss, though, however, now, Joe Cowan, he works primarily for St. Lucie County.
We're county employees now. So
Right.
I moved over from working for court administration to working for the county BOCC.
Okay, so court administration is that umbrella that oversees all four counties. Okay, so you did that for how long, Allison?
For about 5 years.
Okay, and then...
And then I moved right into the county. I was in pretrial. I was a pretrial officer for about 6 months. That's really for people who have been probation officers or law enforcement, formal law enforcement. And I wasn't really trained that way. So it wasn't a terribly good fit for me, although I did the job. But when this drug lab came up, they asked me if I wanted to do that, and I was happy to do that. And my master's degree is in nonprofit management, so that more or less trains me first and foremost to be a program manager.
Right, right.
And so I went into that as a program manager right from the start. Yeah.
And that was what year?
2008.
Wow. Okay, so you've...
It's actually 2009.
Okay, and that's basically when the drug lab opened, wasn't it?
Yes,
okay.
it was right away.
Okay, let's back up for a moment, though, Allison. You talked about, because we have to give the entire picture kind of to get to the drug lab so people understand what it is, why it's in existence, etc. What exactly are pretrial services?
Well, pretrial services are meant for people who their case has not made it through the court system already. Even if it's a violation of a probation, it's still pending.
And this is for criminal, correct?
This is for criminal.
Okay, go ahead.
And so for the pretrial officers, they are monitoring, supervising defendants who have been allowed to leave the jail because it costs taxpayers money to keep them in jail, and because this way they could get back to their families, back to their jobs, because they're not guilty at that point, they're just pending.
Right.
And so we don't want to ruin their lives and keep them in jail.
Right.
So they get to go out, but they have to follow rules. They have to, sometimes they have curfews, depends on the charges.
Right.
And the pretrial program has GPS units to actually monitor the comings and goings if it's so ordered that way. And that's, a lot of them are for domestic violence, to keep the one party away from the other, and situations like that. So that is the pretrial side of it.
Okay. And just to flesh it out a little bit, and you raised a point that is obviously important to me, that people do get arrested, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're guilty, obviously. Right. A bond is set once upon their arrest, but some people cannot afford those bonds, correct?
Right. Correct.
And so now, fortunately, in our circuit, we have an alternative to bonds, which allows people to be released, as you mentioned, upon certain criteria and things that they have to complete.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, the pretrial services is available in all 3 counties, correct? And about to be available in Indian River County?
Right. So it's actually going to be a circuit-wide program.
Right.
But not run by court administration, which typically runs circuit programs.
Right.
So this is, we just have contracts with the other counties.
Right. So it's the cool thing, if you will, and I guess the gold star for St. Lucie County, is that this is a program available to the other counties, but overseen and run by St. Lucie County.
Right, by our own group, yes.
Yeah. The good news is recently, as I'm sure you're aware, we got Indian River County to agree to it. Now, you talked about the fact that when people are in jail, it costs taxpayer dollars. Let's talk about that for a moment. Why?
Well, salaries have to be paid for the deputies. The building needs to be paid for. Their food and health care needs to be paid for, and it's my understanding that health care is one of the top expenses inside the jail.
So to incarcerate someone is expensive, correct?
Very expensive.
Okay, so if we can get them out on pretrial release, although being monitored or whatever the case may be, it's less expensive than keeping them in jail, correct?
Much less
expensive.
Right.
And you bring up an important point, and I'm sure you've seen it along the way so much, is that, while people, first of all, they're innocent until proven guilty, even though they're arrested, And if they're in jail, awaiting trial, awaiting the disposition of their case, they can't go to work. They can't take care of their children, or whatever the case may be. So let's say someone is truly innocent. They get arrested for a charge that they did not commit, but they can't bond out, and there's no pretrial release. In the meantime, their whole lives may be ruined.
Yeah, and they sit languishing in jail.
Right.
While everything goes on around them. Their kids suffer, their families suffer, they lose their job, they might lose their health benefits that they previously had.
Right.
And I'm sure it takes a toll on their mental health as well.
Well, and let's forget about somebody who's innocent. I mean, obviously that's the most staggering example, but if let's take someone who's not innocent, but you've just exacerbated everything bad that's happened to them by adding all those things to what's going to ultimately happen and be their sentence.
Right, right.
Yeah. Do you have any idea, Allison, do all circuits have pretrial release or no?
I don't know that every circuit has it, but a lot of them do.
Right.
And it's been proven to be a benefit to the taxpayers and to the defendants and their families.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to your current job, which is managing the drug court lab. First of all, what is the drug court lab and where is it located?
Well, it's not just for drug court, so it's just the drug screening lab.
Right.
Our main office.
And I'm sorry, I said drug court. Okay.
Our main office is inside the courthouse. That's where we have our chemical analyzer. We also have a site in Port St. Lucie, and that was a more recent opening in 2018.
Okay.
And that is to take care of the people that live in the south part of our county, because it's a big county and a lot of them had a hard time getting up to Fort Pierce. That's a part-time lab. And then we also, back in 2010, we were asked by the judge out there to open up a lab in Okeechobee. So we have a lab out there, and we use the back room of the core probation office, which goes mostly unused. Except for weekend DUI classes and things. So they said we could use that.
Okay.
And we've been there ever since.
Okay, so one in Okeechobee, two in St. Lucie County, one in Port St. Lucie, one in Fort Pierce. Okay. How many people work in the drug labs?
Well, we have right now actually 9. We have 9 people, 3 full-time people, and the rest are part-time.
Okay. So what is it? Why is it?
Well, the lab was started because before that, the Department of Health was drug testing people, mainly for a mental health court, which had just started up at that time. I think about 2006 it might have started.
It did, 2006.
And the Department of Health was drug testing them. And very often the tests weren't getting to court in a timely manner, not their fault, but they weren't set up for, deadlines like that.
Right.
And
this was obviously before we started pretrial release.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just
okay.
before that.
Right. Okay.
And I would imagine the health department didn't really want those customers. All the tests have to be observed.
Right.
And so that poses a problem especially when you have to staff. You have to always have, one of each gender on staff if you're going to have a full caseload like that. So I guess it became an issue at some point, and they inquired about having a county lab to address mental health court. And from there, we got DCF.
And what is DCF?
DCF are parents that are abused, neglect, or abandon their children, and they're in a case plan or whatever the situation is, and they're required to drug test.
Right. In dependency court, basically.
Yes, dependency court.
Okay. So your drug lab helps mental health court, obviously drug court.
Right.
What about veterans court?
We have veterans court
Right.
as well. We take care of all the drug court and the core probationers, DJJ juveniles who are required to drug test. They come to us as well.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, as you're listing them, I'm like, yeah, this is a big deal. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then we do get probationers from all over the state and sometimes from out of state when, you know, a defendant from another state comes to visit their parents or whatever down here, and their probation officer will call and ask, can we have them tested there? And we do that, and it works out well for them because they know they're getting observed. They know they're getting the right kinds of tests.
Right.
And so we're available to anybody that needs us. We're open to the public.
Okay. Is there a charge to get drug tested?
Yeah. The charge per test is $25 per test.
Okay.
And that's for a 10-panel test. We have some extra, like designer drug type things that we can add on, and that's an additional cost. And then for those who test multiple times a week, we give them a flat fee.
Okay.
And that's
Of what?
$35 a week for that.
Okay. But okay, let's back up then a little bit and recap. So your drug lab tests helps the court system in dependency court, juvenile court, all the diversion courts, which we mentioned, which are mental health court, veterans, and drug court, and then for straight probation, correct?
Correct. And pretrial.
And pretrial.
And pretrial. And more recently, we've been getting quite a number of family cases where there's children involved.
Okay.
And one parent might have a drug issue or alcohol issue. And so we need to drug test them before or after visitation, or maybe they're on a set schedule. And actually, some of the things that we create inside the drug lab are a direct result of the needs of these people. So for instance, we run a circuit hotline.
Right.
And there's a variety of choices, but sometimes, and they're welcome to use those choices, but sometimes it doesn't quite fit that scenario.
Right.
So we created a random texting program where we can set internally the schedule they're supposed to be on, and the program will text them a message the night before and say, you have to come in for a drug test the next day.
Right.
And that was created by the wonderful Broderick and Christopher, who
of course,
who you know, who create all our databases.
Well, and most of these tests, are they not, Allison, random? I mean, you don't tell someone who's on pretrial release, who has gotten a break, you know, look, we're going to let you out. You don't have to stay in jail, but I want you, you know, you were arrested for a drug charge, so I want you to get drug tested once a week. You don't tell them when necessarily, correct?
No, it has to be random. If they knew when they were going to test, they knew when they could use drugs and when they couldn't use drugs.
Right. Yeah. So, and that system helps. Okay, so we know all the things you do, which I had no idea about. Now, the money goes where? To self-fund your program?
The lab is self-funded, so we don't use any taxpayer money. We all user fee funded.
Okay. If there's excess, where does it go?
It goes back to the county and to the general fund.
Okay, gotcha. What if St. Lucie County or?
For St. Lucie County.
Okay, okay. Now, what about someone who's court ordered to drug test twice a week, 3 times a week, and they can't afford the $35 flat fee?
Well, we never turn anybody away. So it's important to get the drug test when it's supposed to be taken. Right. And we figure out the payment after.
Okay.
For drug court, there's some grants available for them, and for veterans court too.
Right.
And actually mental health court, we have a fee schedule where they get a very reduced rate.
Right.
Sometimes zero.
Yeah.
And the rest of it is a write-off, is what we call it.
Okay. Okay. So, did people know that it costs going in? They're told that, are they not?
They're told that up front, yes.
Okay. Okay, so someone, and you're not going to believe this, we're almost out of time, and we haven't even touched the surface, have we, Allison? So someone gets court ordered because they're on pretrial release or on probation, whatever, to get drug tested. Mm-hmm. They come to the place, they get texted, they come down. Is it blood, urine? What is it?
Oh, it's urine.
Okay, and that's why they have to be observed?
Correct. Just to make sure it's coming from them.
Right.
And then we test it to verify that it's actually human urine.
Right.
And not fake urine or animal urine.
Yeah.
And
when you say observed, I mean you actually watch them go to the bathroom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and a woman for a woman, man for a man.
Yeah.
Okay. And how big is this machine? Tell me about it.
The analyzer is, it's probably the size of a normal kitchen counter with a stove that, you know.
Right.
And we have a tiny room that it fits in that gets locked up at night, obviously. And the analyzer can do about 100 tests an hour, and it's all automated. Everything's barcoded.
Okay.
And so when folks come in, they have the supplies they need to provide their samples that actually have the barcode right on it with their name right on it.
Okay, now are the people so the machine analyzes it, but you've got somebody running the machine. Do they have to have a certification to run the machine, or?
Well, there's no certification. I have trained extensively over the years with, first it was Siemens, and now we use Thermo Fisher, and then I train our employees.
Okay, on how to use the machine.
Yes.
So there's no particular schooling or anything, it just...
No, but these machines are designed for situations like ours where we don't have professionals. There are other machines in the big labs like MedTox and LabCorp, where, yeah, you would need extensive training on those.
And the panel tests for all drugs, for just marijuana and cocaine?
No,
or?
we have 8 different drugs, 2 validity tests, and then we also have a variety of designer drugs like ecstasy and the spice and
that you can add on to, but that's
that's additional charge.
Okay,
yeah.
And that would be court ordered because of the nature of the crime or pretrial. Okay, now, how many do you do a month?
Well, we'll talk about pre-COVID because this has been a crazy couple of years.
Yeah, let's talk about pre-COVID.
But pre-COVID, we were doing upwards between 30,000 and 35,000 tests a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you getting now?
And I do see it increasing. It is going back up. This last year was worse than the first year.
Okay.
But it is suddenly, I see it improving, you know, substantially.
Yeah, the numbers and stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Well, and improving is a terrible word because it makes it sound like it's good, and it's...
Yeah, we wish no one had to be drug tested. Right. Now, what if I get drug tested and I did not have any drugs in my system, by God, and your machine says I did? What's the alternative?
Well, we freeze all the samples for 30 days, and
you have that apparatus in the labs?
We have a big freezer right inside the lab.
Okay.
In Fort Pierce.
Okay.
And if you disagree with the test, we will take out your sample and we will send it to a different lab to use a different method called a GCMS or LCMS to retest the sample. And so if you took something benign that caused a positive on our test, it would likely come up negative. and it would prove that you indeed were not using drugs.
Okay. How often does that happen?
You know, it doesn't happen that often.
Well, let me rephrase the question. How often do people say, was not negative, I mean, I was not positive, I was not using drugs, this is wrong? How often does that happen? Once a month, 10 times a month?
Maybe 5 to 10 times a month.
Okay. And then once it goes to the second lab, how many of those 5 to 10 come back that your testing was wrong?
Virtually all of them that are shown to be confirmed, which means that we were correct.
Oh.
Yeah.
So have you ever had one that was not confirmed?
Yeah.
But not often?
No, not often.
In a year, when pre-COVID?
Just a handful.
Okay, okay.
You know, and we do have a list, a do not take list, we call it, and it's circuit-wide. And these are the substances, our chemical company has tested hundreds of substances.
Right.
To see which ones might come up positive on the drug test.
Oh, so you tell,
Right.
Okay.
So it may not actually be a drug, but some examples are the sports drinks designed to give you boosts of energy and things like that, metabolize somewhat similar to amphetamines.
Okay.
And so those things sometimes will cause a positive for amphetamines. So we say, you're supposed to be negative while you're drug testing.
Right.
That's your job.
Right.
So here's what you should not take to stay negative.
Right.
So if you give them the list, everybody, all the probation officers, DCF, everybody instructs their clients with this list. And if you come up positive, you can't use it as an excuse.
Right, got it. Okay, with about a minute left, believe it or not, and then once you have the report, you send it to whoever needs it, the judge in diversion court, probation, pretrial release, whatever. Right. And at that point, the determination of the consequence of that positive, let's say, drug test is up to the court, correct?
Is up to the, yes.
So
ultimately
you're
up to the judge.
Out of the
yes.
punishment end of it, or
Right.
the consequence end of it.
But our test results are used to prove they're not doing drugs,
Right.
just as much as that they are.
Okay. And before we close, Allison, about what is the ratio? How many people a month fail, percentage-wise? Approximately.
Well, it's hard to say because sometimes they have prescriptions.
Right.
Drug court and veterans court are, well, drug court is the only one where they're not supposed to take any prescriptions.
Right.
So, it's hard to say which ones are positive and aren't supposed to be.
But you would say the majority are doing the right thing?
I would say there's plenty of people who are doing the right thing, and that's why we're there every day. That's why we were open all during COVID for those people.
Okay.
They want to stay sober.
Which is great.
Drug-free.
Okay, thank you. This was wonderful. We didn't touch on everything, but thank you so much.
You're very welcome.